April the 8th, 7/13. You know, turkey season's going to open here soon in Tennessee. It may have already opened in some states. We're going to talk here a little bit about hunter safety. Okay, now I'm going to give you an example here to show you what could happen to you. About 15, 16 years ago, I put a blind right up there. There was a pair of hickory trees that have blown over since. I put it right under those hickory trees sitting right up in there, okay? So I invited one of the wife's kinfolk to come down here and go deer hunting. This was in rifle season. So he comes down here, and this was opening morning. I didn't know exactly when he was coming. He wasn't here when I left. I went deer hunting. Okay, and I told him where the blind was, and he understood. I was hunting, okay, the blind was up there. I hunted back over this way. Okay, about a half a mile from him, and I killed me a deer. So I didn't even go get my deer because it was sort of in toward the direction he was setting. So I decided to take my side-by-side off up the hill way up here and come back down this road here. When I came back down this road here, standing right in there was an 8-point buck. Now remember, the last kinfolks in a blind sitting right up there. You couldn't see that blind from the road. You see where I'm going with this? Now that buck was a good buck. But I already knew that was not no shot to take, okay? Because there was a person in a blind up there in the vicinity behind that deer. Had a stranger have come down this road hunting, they wouldn't have known any better, would they? They wouldn't have known any better. Road hunting's bad around here for deer. So you give that some thought, you know, if you're a road hunter, you could unintentionally kill somebody. Remember, times have changed. If you dial back 20 and 30 years ago, blinds were not so popular. It was more tree stands. So now you could have hunters in blinds at ground level. There could be a deer standing 30 yards from that blind, and you can't see the blind, and the deer's not been spooked, and the hunter in the blind hasn't seen the buck. And when you see a good rack deer, what happens? You focus. You don't look at your surroundings. You don't look behind. You know, you're zeroed in on that deer with your eyes. So what is the moral of the story here? Well, the moral of the story is you better be hunting only on land you have permission to hunt, because you don't know who is where. Now, I've got a buddy up the road here. He owns about 500 acres. And he'll get out of his side-by-side and he'll go get his little shoot house deer hunting. And I asked him, I said, are you wearing orange? Oh, no, ain't nobody supposed to be up there. I've warned him about that. I said, you don't know who's up there. You're out deer hunting. Even if you're on your own property, in a more of a controlled situation, you need to put your orange on, because you don't know who has come in there and who's sitting where and who's watching where. And remember, a stranger who's not even supposed to be on a piece of property could see a deer in that situation. And the landowners in the vicinity with no orange on, and the deer's in close proximity to this person, but the hunter, the shooter, doesn't see the person. They shoot at the deer, they miss the deer, they hit the deer, the bullet goes through it, and then they've killed somebody or hurt them. Now, hunting on public land, you know, you're sharing that land with other hunters. turkey fans are outlawed here on this public land for good reason. You understand that, right? Turkey fans. Now, decoys. I've talked to another friend that's an avid turkey hunter. He like to got shot one time. Somebody come up the road and seen his decoy on his own property. He's over there hunting, and the decoy was in line with him and the truck that stopped. He had one of those big gobbler decoys. I wouldn't advise using one of those, ladies and gentlemen. Stay away from those at all costs. And he had to yell to let the guy know he was over there. He was fixing to be probably scatter with some a turkey load. Movement. You don't shoot at movement. Now remember, turkey hunting, unlike deer hunting, and you know, if we just knew, I want you to think about this, scopes have become more and more popular over the years. If we only knew how many times a rifle scope has prevented a person from being shot, if we knew, we would probably be shocked. Now, turkey hunting generally, you know, you don't have a scope on a shotgun, but the old sharpshooter happens to use one. So I'm getting a better look at my target when I fire. A lot of people use open sights on shotguns. Just because you see movement, just because you see a set of turkey feathers sticking up in front of you, an old gobbler, the fan, you could be shooting at somebody. You need to study that target. You don't need just movement, you need detail. And the turkey, you know, you got these decoys on these sticks, you know, that spin in the wind. You got to watch it. That may not be a real turkey you're shooting at. You know, there is some peer pressure involved that causes some of these accidents, in my opinion. Especially the younger generations, you know. You need to take your time and look at your target. Alright. And look around and behind your target. Be familiar with your situation. You hear something, you see something that don't sound right, you know, you need to call it into question. I don't like to see accidents like this, you know, but they do happen, okay? And some of the accidents are even caused, believe it or not, by the person that gets hurt because they weren't wearing fluorescent orange in deer season. Or, you know, you don't want to hoist an old gobbler over the back of your back and pack him out either. Especially on public land. You got to be off on public land. You have to take extraordinary measures. There's other people on there and you don't know their skill set, their mindset. There could be somebody under the influence of drugs and alcohol too. It's high risk. All right. Well, anyway, that's going to conclude the video.